Let's embrace innovative volunteerism. Away, as he go. Rise up, you and me are the solution to these challenges. Oh yeah. Rise up, you and me are the solution to these challenges.
Our value in what we do is very, very important. And it's always good to understand what value you bring to the table. And if you don't understand what value you bring to the table, you'll be missing out a lot of opportunities. You need to know what you stand for. And the best thing to make you to know what you stand for, those are your values, cannot be about you as an individual. It must be about the aspirations of thousands and millions of people. If you are given an opportunity, what value do you bring there that can also inspire others and that can do something that can help solve the problems that are affecting many today and millions across the entire world? We are living in a world of uncertainty. Yes, it is. We see calamities orchestrated by climate change, droughts and floods, cyclones and hurricanes. This is the new normal in which we are going to live in the coming, starting now and into the future. We are seeing emergencies like COVID-19 that plunge and cause many thousands of lives to be lost. These are not mere statistics. These are human lives. Across the entire African continent, we are seeing over 284 million citizens going to bed hungry. These are not mere statistics. We are seeing over 700,000 Africans dying because of indoor pollution. These are not mere statistics. These are human lives. And this must become the urgency for each and every one of us to do anything, having in mind that anything that you put your hand to do should be to contribute to bettering the life of our mothers in communities who go to bed with a stomach aching of hunger. Of those kids, 60 million of kids across the continent malnourished. Mothers burying their kids before they reach the age of 5 just because they cannot be able to put nutritious food on the table. These realities must keep us awake every night. And anytime we get up in the morning and get prepared to go to work, we must be asking, what will my 24 hours or the 8 hours you spend in the office do to contribute to touch the life of this mother, of these young children?
And there's a joke that is made about Africa most of the times, is that if you want Africans or any African to be distracted, bring money up front. They will abandon whatever thing they are doing, chase the money, and forget their priorities.
This is true.
But what needs to be done, especially the youth, because first of all, the Africa of 2018 is not the same like the Africa of the 60s or the 80s or the 90s.
Layer two.
The youth today are tech savvy. Anything happening anywhere in the world, they know. They can connect with someone in New York or in Berlin or in London anytime, utilizing your mobile phone. So the world is pretty much in your palm. That then means that the understanding of issues is not the problem, but it's about priorities. And the priority should be not about you as an individual per se. It should be about what will you want to be remembered for. And you can only be remembered for by solving a problem that is bigger than you. And the biggest problem that Africa faces today is food insecurity. Because if you address food insecurity problems, we will be addressing health issues in the continent. If you address food insecurity problems, you actually be addressing the issue of poverty. Because everyone eats food. No one smokes oil. No one smoked other things. But if you address food insecurity, you will be lifting people from the bottom of the pyramid. So the overarching issue here is that the youth, knowing that ideas transform societies, should be able to leverage what each and every one of them have and engage in innovative volunteerism to be able to use their skills to contribute to the bigger picture, but also knowing fully well that if they can be able to do that, they'll be building their skills and being competitive, because the world is becoming so competitive.
Yes.
And if someone doesn't prepare himself, and preparing himself is not only through education per se, because education goes beyond the classroom. It's also about nurturing the skills, because we're talking about blockchain, we're talking about robotics, we're talking about artificial intelligence. And that means that people who are not really trying to orientate their skills towards areas that are highly needed will be displaced, and this will be replaced by machines, by robots. And so it is about now the continent, which is youthful, because actually the continent is youth, 720 million is youthful. That means that if Africa works, the beneficiary will be the youth. If Africa fails, then those who will suffer the consequences more will be the youth. So Africa is their continent, and they don't have to talk about. And you see, leadership is not necessarily about being in elective position. Everyone is a leader. And leadership is inspiration. Leadership is taking responsibility. Leadership is accountability. So if you can be able, just take the example of traffic lights. When they are red, whether you are a PhD or you are a primary school leaver or you are the head of it doesn't matter. You have to respect. So that is leadership. But when you run through red lights, what are you showing? Which example are you showing? That anyone can run?
It's impunity.
It's impunity. And if you can do that, don't expect another person not to do it, and don't blame the person. So the point is that everyone should take responsibility in what he or she is doing.
The reality is that the biggest constituency that Africa have got today
is our population.
It's the population, especially the youthful population that is 60. That is over 60% of the entire 1.2 billion people that we have as a continent. But they are the non-state actors. And what I would actually really like to put it in perspective here is that Africa have the policies. The role of government is to put the policies in place and create an enabling environment for non-state actors. And the biggest constituency of those non-state actors are the youth. Are the youth doing their bit? Yes. They are coming up with these apps, these technology applications. But at the end of the day, what they need, which is very, very important, is skills retooling. Because what we know is that a skilled human being is 4 times the value of produced wealth and 15 times the value of natural capital. That then means that the youth need to, whether you study physics or chemistry or biology or you did journalism or you are a climate change specialist like us here, it doesn't really matter. What is needed in value addition needs extra skills. So you can get some skills on how to be able to use a solar dryer. You can get some skills on how to add value to what is produced. For example, Dr. Ri also mentioned here, cassava is an indigenous crop that is climate resilient, but it can produce up to about 300 products.
Those are the climate smart crops.
Absolutely. And it is a climate resilient crop and can grow anywhere across the entire continent. Now, up to about 500 million people in the continent eat cassava. That means that's a huge market.
Cassava. Give us other examples of the climate smart crops.
And you have sorghum, you have a millet that you mentioned. So the issue is not just the crops, is to tap into adding value so that you can be able to have products that can be marketable. And if you look at the importation of some of these food products in the continent, most of this is wheat. And if you take, for example, Nigeria came up with one of the most brilliant policies called the cassava bread policy, which indicates that every bread that is produced must have 20% of that bread being cassava.
Wow.
And that is creating a market. And now we're working with the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Energy to ensure that that cassava bread policy can actually now help incentivize farmers so they produce their cassava, they add value to it so that those who are producing bread can be able to buy. That can happen here. So the issue is not lack of policies, no lack of action. It's how we can avoid silos and leverage in a complementarity way to be able to drive this forward.
Let's embrace innovative volunteerism. Let's go. Rise up, rise up.